Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Coach. It is such a pleasure to have you with me today. I know you are full of information. This is such a beautiful and important topic to tackle because a lot of us are suffering in silence. We
Mhm.
don't talk about workplace trauma. So we are so honored to have you. We are so grateful because I know your time is so valuable. You're doing so many things with the kings. I try to focus my attention to the ladies. You get everybody in your program, which is wonderful, wonderful. Let me formally introduce you to the public that might be already on today. Welcome to Coach Francesca Dovilla. Coach, to give people a brief history of how we met, a woman that are moving and shaking, we met the Haitian Ladies Network. This
That's
is where
right.
we met and we see each other. We on social media, several platforms, and
Yeah.
we follow each other. I follow very closely all the wonderful work that you're doing. And I said, you know what, I can't wait to collaborate with her. And here we are.
Here we are.
So here we are. So anybody who wants to grow should really invest in networking events so that you can find a mentor, which is it's priceless to invest this money to grow, to make yourself better. So I encourage everybody to do that. Coach Francesca Dorvilles, how do they pronounce your name in English? I can do it very well in French, but
Okay, because
how
I
do
was gonna say Dorvilas, but I say Dorvillas.
Dorvilles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Coach Dorvilles is a licensed clinician social worker. She's a certified professional and life coach and founder of I Am Forever Evolving LLC. She is a licensed clinical social worker, certified professional life coach, and certified facilitator of Unbreak My Soul. As the founder of I Am Forever Evolving, she has flourished into a visionary host. She's an event curator, a moderator, the international speaker that she is, and self-care advocate and philanthropist. And she is so much more. I didn't do it justice to put all that I needed to put here to describe you. So I'm going to stop sharing now so that we can see face to face.
Yes. I want to quickly say thank you for the introduction, and also thank you for, inviting me onto the platform to have this important conversation. Thank you, Coach Irma.
Important conversation, yes. Let's just dive right into it. How can I describe this? It's very frustrating
Mhm.
to hear comments in the workplace about our emotional state, to have our decision questioned, to be perceived as the angry Black woman. Let's start there.
Yes.
Having said that, what motivated you to get into talking about these subjects that are tabooed? Because I don't think I would dare go to a meeting and ask people or say that I feel like you're treating me like, the thing out there that I'm an angry Black woman. What gave you the courage to do that and tackle this subject?
Yes, so I will first say I don't think anyone ever has the courage to step up and say it immediately. Because a lot of times when it does happen, you're almost like questioning, like, did this really happen? Did they really say that? But I personally have taken on the torch around workplace trauma because I have had my own personal experiences twice. Uh
Mm,
Meeting in two different locations. And I
wow.
recall, in the first one, working in social services, just kind of being in that space where I was juggling a lot. And we had in a director kind of taken a higher position, whereas a lot of people in between had left, and I was the remaining
Mm-hmm.
I was the remaining supervisor. So I was holding down both teams. And I too was looking for opportunities to grow. And I remember there was a time where I had applied for the internal position, which was the manager position. And then I also saw other things outside, but within the same agency. And this lady flipped on me. She flipped on me because number one, she didn't even know that I applied for a position within our program. But she had caught wind that I had did an interview outside of the program, and she was
Mm,
so
mm,
let's just say, since that moment, there were little words that were just being said here and there. And I was just like, wow, like this lady is really taking a lot out of me, and I'm holding down both teams. And
mm,
I'm apparently the one who is an OG in this particular program. They're coming in, they're asking me questions. They're wanting me to do things because I'm pretty much the last one left in terms of leadership in that
mm.
program. So um, I also had to recognize for myself that sometimes I stay a little longer in places that I don't need to be, and that's one thing
All do.
that's one thing I
We all
learned.
do.
Sometimes we
Mm.
are being we're holding things down and we're being loyal to places that are not necessarily loyal to us.
To us, yes.
Definitely a lesson that I learned. And while in that position, I actually had taken a training, which was called supervision and coaching. Sorry. Um,
Hmm.
and I recognized that at that point I was not being supervised with love. And I'm just saying with love because there's just a way that coaching is where it allows you to grow in your role. It allows you to use critical thinking. It allows you to be able to know how to be handled with care in the workplace. And
Hmm.
that, and when I realized that, I also recognized within myself as a supervisor areas that I can grow. And I said, I like this. So that was part one. I wind up
That was part one.
Yeah, I wound up leaving that position, and the place where I had my training had an opening. And so they told me about it. I was excited. I applied, jumped right on in. And within that 5-year period, some other stuff started to happen. Changes in leadership. That's all I'm gonna say. What I recognize from my experience is that it was changes in leadership. And the moment that there was a switch up in leadership, someone else kind of takes over, is trying to kind of lay down their own blueprint and come with their own personalities and stuff. And things don't always stay the way that you started,
Hmm.
tended to kind of be in. And it caused a lot of different shifts. So there was lack of accountability, and both times it was from women in leadership, women of color. So
Mm.
it's not always, the opposite sides.
Yes.
So it's so vast.
Yes, that's true.
Mhm.
That's true. So experience is the best teacher, they say. And I believe that God put us through, not so much put us through, but allows us to go through these different experiences so that we can so that we can be of service to others.
Yes.
I think that's what it is. And that's why we shouldn't take for granted the bad time that's in our lives, because we setting ourselves up to be able to help others.
Hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. What are some common forms of trauma that Black women in particular experience in the workplace?
Yes. Well, first I want to, what is trauma to begin
What
with?
is trauma?
Yes. So when we think about trauma, it's an emotional response to an event that we either witness or experience, and we perceive it as either a threat or it might be harmful, and it leaves us with long-term effects, right? And unfortunately, sometimes in the workplace, it's not a one-time situation. It's something that you continue to experience over and over and over and over again, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
continually being exposed to those ongoing situations, it can look like microaggressions, it can look like gender bias. It can look like discrimination, gaslighting, just to kind of name a few. And again, this can come from leadership, which was my experience, but it can also come from our peers, our colleagues.
Our peers, yes,
It can come from
yes.
stakeholders, people that we're providing the services to, in addition to consumers, which can be the public, depending on what type of work environment that we're in. And
And yes, the service industry get it from on all ends. The service industry, they get it from the people we serve,
yeah,
our peers. It comes from everywhere.
exactly.
Um, and it's so difficult. There was a term that I heard somebody use, switch,
Code switch.
code switch. Oh my God, can you talk about code switch?
Oh my God. Okay, so this is a different topic, but also can be,
Is it a different topic?
it's a whole topic within itself.
Within
So we as
itself.
Black people, code switch at work, right? There is a
Mm-hmm.
way that you present yourself, a way that others are able to accept you in a way, right? So it might be the way that you're talking, the way that you're
Mm-hmm.
presenting yourself, right? And it's usually a lot about how you're talking, right? So you code switch, you know the language to use, you know the lingo, as they would say,
You
right?
know, the lingo.
And you
Um,
just know how to show up as the best version of yourself in that moment. And as we're talking about code switching, there's also the mask that we wear at work, right? Or in different places anyway. But
mhm.
specifically at work, there's a mask that has to be worn where at times we don't feel like we can be vulnerable. That's another topic as well. But all of them, when they come together, these are important topics and conversations to have, especially as Black women, Black people.
Yes, I agree. Um, the code switch, I think I was reading somewhere, it's almost like you have to overcompensate on being so nice so people can feel comfortable around you.
Absolutely.
And I was baffled. I said, is that what we're doing? We can't even be ourselves because if we talk too loud, we are the angry Black woman. If we get angry, we are the angry Black women.
Mhm.
So you always have to push these feelings down deep inside of you to show up professional, to show up professional. You're not supposed to get angry. You're not supposed to be upset. It's almost like they don't expect you to be human in the workplace.
Right.
Um, that's interesting. That's topic. So you touched on racial bias and gender bias.
Mhm.
How does these items contribute to trauma for Black women in the professional setting?
So, we also talk about intersectionality, right? Which will come up soon. But when we talk about racial bias and gender bias, racial, of course, has to deal with our race. And so there may be opportunities where Black women, are impacted because they might be training, an example, training someone else who does not look like them, who is not as qualified as them for not only just their position but a position above them.
Above them.
Racial bias, right? So when we think about
Mm.
bias, we all have it, by the way. Every single
Mm-hmm.
person has bias. But we want to think about like what are some ideas or perceived ideas of who we are before people even inquire, get to know, or even extend an opportunity, right? And so racial bias already kind of plays a factor in the way that we interact in the workplace. And so another example might be like your hairstyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Racial bias.
Mm-hmm.
Like what does your hair need to look like that's professional in the workplace, or your professional attire. So unless it's like a culturally sensitive event, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
are you able to come in your cultural attire in certain workspaces, or would
Mm-hmm.
that be kind of considered, off? Now, I bring that up because those might be individual stuff, but racial bias may come in when someone actually comes and encounters you and starts pushing out microaggressions,
Mm.
right? or it may
Mm,
play into a factor where you may not necessarily get a promotion. When you talk about gender bias, as women, especially if you get to be, within the workforce, we have a certain age range, right, where you are of childbearing age or, just having a family period. So gender bias
mm-hmm.
to the trauma for professional Black women because a lot of assumptions might be made that you may not be able
Right.
to balance, having a family or being pregnant at this time, and having a newborn and still working, right? So instead of us giving you that promotion, instead of us extending certain things to you, let's just kind of do you a favor in a way, right? Automatically assume so that we don't, aren't able to like give you certain things. So those assumptions are kind of made for you. But again, that's because of the bias that we have. It's an assumption that we come in with.
Okay. Okay. Um, we have to be aware. We have to pay attention to these things. Some things, sometimes I think people who think a lot, we overthink things, and you might see something, you're like, but it is good to self-examine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when something hits you, stop and think about it. Why did that hit me hard? Um, you see somebody get a promotion and you like, really? I thought I was qualified for this position more than this other person.
Right.
Others might think it's jealousy. Maybe it is jealousy. Maybe let me examine myself to say, okay, how did I prepare? Why do I feel like I was more qualified to this? Um, so that's epic.
Absolutely. And earlier you talked about just being perceived as the angry Black woman. And so when we even talk about what racial and gender bias is, right, that kind of
Mhm.
falls into those categories as well, because what are you perceiving an angry Black woman to be, right? And if I'm not to be human and express my feelings based on something that I felt that I was wronged in, not necessarily having to yell, not necessarily
Mhm.
curse, having a different feeling alone makes me an angry Black woman because guess what? My tone probably changed, right? So
Yes.
I'm speaking
And if I'm
professionally.
upset, my tone is gonna change, right?
Exactly, exactly. So speaking up for yourself at any point in time can make you be perceived as an angry Black woman.
Okay, I think let me welcome the people that are watching with us. Ann Bowers, thank you for coming, ladies. It's nice to have you. If you have any questions during the show, please let us know, and I'll be happy to, or Miss Davila, Coach Davila will be happy to answer. Okay, we'll try to check in with Facebook to see if there's question all throughout. So this is what we talked about the first time. Black women are 3 times more likely than white women and men to have a code switch. We just talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
3 times more. Um, I must act extra happy so I'm not looked at as bitter because I'm a Black woman. And a foreign Black woman at that, us Haitians, we have it even worse.
Right.
Um, I feel like there's layers. There's the white man, which is what the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
There's the white woman, and then Black men, and then we are at the bottom of the total pole, Black women, and then foreigners
Mm-hmm.
is at the even worse piece of it. So I know you surprised that the numbers are that high?
I'm not.
You're not. Okay.
I'm imagining when we talk about a foreign Black woman and you talk about code switching, sometimes that might be you being mindful of your accent.
Mm-hmm.
Can people hear and comprehend what it is that I'm saying? Not only just for people to understand, but am I going to be judged as not necessarily
Uneducated.
uneducated, not understanding my role or what it is that I'm doing? So
Yes,
switching to have to pretty much assimilate with whatever's around and acceptable.
that's true.
Hmm.
And the last piece says, if someone says something offensive to me, I have to think about how to respond in a way that doesn't make me seem like angry Black woman. And we talked about that. You covered that in many instances through. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see if we can go to the next slide. These are some more numbers that I found, and we kind of put it together just to give everybody an idea, where, like I said, white men is on top,
Yep.
men of color, 18%, white woman is at 29%. These are entry-level jobs. So it's a representation of what's out there. I don't think they have all the numbers, if you ask me,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot that goes, as you know, when they do research, a lot of people don't report stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very poignant,
But if we
to
could
say
look at
the
it for if we could look at it for what it is, again, I worked in social services, whether it be a not-for-profit or the city or in conjunction of, right? And there was always this thing where we recognize, especially as a social work background, having to work with people in the community, most of the people that were doing that were people of color. And then as you go up into leadership and who is in the the big house,
uh-huh.
corporate space, it that changed as well. So this is not, although we may not have all the numbers, the way that it is presented is not that far off removed as well. Like you can walk into an organization and see this in plain sight. So
Yeah,
mhm.
that's true. That's true. Let's see. Ann Bauer says we encounter bias just from having an accent. Yes, we do. And Ann is from Jamaica.
Yeah,
So we when we worked together, we had that in common. We had the island accents.
yep.
It is a thing. It is a thing. Microaggression, you also covered that earlier.
And it's in conjunction with what you said about the angry Black woman, like something that is
Uh,
said to you, and all of a sudden, you're supposed to hold in your emotions because you're not human.
you're
Um,
not human.
someone says something about your hair, or, that infamous wanting to touch your hair, or someone you presented, some material or held a meeting, and someone speaks to how eloquently you spoke, as if not everyone's code switching, by the way, right? Based on where you were raised.
Hmm.
When those things do happen, it's almost as if you were not supposed to be well spoken, or they're surprised that you spoke so well. Oh my goodness, you use those terminologies, so yeah, all those things take part of microaggressions. Or, I mean, wow, we can go down the list of so many things.
There's
But
so many, yeah.
microaggressions as they happen, I remember watching a video. It's almost like a mosquito bite. Like, wow, I just caught that, right? And
Uh-huh.
it happens, and as it begins to happen, you start noticing more and more. Because the first time you're like, oh, okay, like you don't make nothing of it. And then after a while, it's like, well, why? What about my hair?
Yeah.
Like, what about the way that I speak? What about, the things that I do? What's so different or between myself and the next colleague or yourself,
Hmm.
right? So you
Yeah.
start to notice these things, and it doesn't feel good. So after things build up, because we're human, you might even, the next time a microaggression happens, there might be a blow up, and then you
There
turn out
might be a blow up.
to look like
And
an
what
angry Black woman.
this is what it is. Even when there's big issues happening at work,
Hmm.
you report it. It's almost like they look at you like you want to whine.
Hmm.
Um, so they brush it off. And then all this is building up in you because you feel dismissed, you feel not heard. So
It's gaslighting.
it's gaslighting,
Now you
yes.
get
And then
dismissed.
they wonder why. Why do you have an attitude? Because we never address anything. We need to address these things so that everybody can be clear that we can keep doing this.
Yeah.
It's affecting our health. Um, Microaggression, as they say, the research is clear about the implications. Seemingly harmless statement can have on one's physical mental health,
Mm-hmm.
especially over the course of an entire career. From the time you were a novice, I remember when I first started working as a manager in a hotel, it was male dominated.
Mm.
Um, and I was young, so I had all that against me. So only the strong survive. Let me tell you, only the strong survives. Can you talk about the health issues that can occur if we
Oh,
don't address these
absolutely.
things and take care of them?
Absolutely. I mean, you have a few on the screen already, but just thinking about
Yes,
physical, you ever go to work and you just, every time you come to work, you have a headache, like a terrible headache. And then when you leave, everything is like, okay.
lifted.
Our body knows. So those moments when you're struggling to start your day for the week, or Sundays, you're like, oh my God, I have to go into this office space. And not everybody like to, not everyone's a morning person. Not everyone likes to, go in at the beginning of the week. But when we're talking about actually having trauma, it's
Mhm.
like there's this avoidance that's starting to happen. In the morning, it's taking a long time for you to get up. It's taking a long time for you to get out the house. You're not sure whether or not you want to go in. Maybe you're gonna call out sick. It's a ripple effect,
Mhm.
right?
Yes,
And so when we think about physical signs, there's a lot of somatic symptoms that we experience. And if we're not listening to our bodies, it becomes bigger problems later. It can cause
yes.
diabetes, it can cause digestive issues, it can cause a lot of different things, strokes, heart disease, right? That's stress.
I tense up and you can feel the
Oh,
tension
yes,
again when you walk in the workplace and it's
absolutely.
doesn't have to be
Right. Your body's preparing. It's like it's being armored for war, right? And that goes
flight
back
or fight.
to exactly. So that goes back to when
Yes.
I said, what is trauma? It's an emotional response. Each time you have to continue to go into the workplace and you already know what you're going to deal with, or maybe you don't. The fact that you're stepping into a place that's familiar where your trauma
Mhm.
was experienced, your body is already preparing for war, right? You're either going to fight, flight, or freeze,
Or
right?
freeze.
Or freeze.
Yes,
Exactly. So those are the emotional responses that we have. And each time your body tenses up like that, that's stress, right? Your stress
that is
cortisol is
true.
like, an alarm right now. And so
Yes,
that stress, it stays in your body and somatically it has to go somewhere, right? And so where does
it
it go?
does.
Throughout our body. Yes, we have our headaches, but it can also come out in other things where, we have strokes,
Cancer,
and cancer,
cancer,
absolutely.
high blood pressure. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or death. That's the
Or
ultimate.
death.
That's the ultimate. Now, in terms of like mental health, there was some things that you mentioned with depression, but it can also cause anxiety as well. Every time I go, I'm in fear of going to the workplace. I'm in fear in speaking to this particular colleague. I'm in fear in speaking to my leadership because I don't know if the next time they're gonna call me in, are they gonna tell me that, I'm losing my job or, that I'm doing something wrong. You just never know. I'm sitting in a meeting.
You never know.
If I'm quiet, I'm too quiet. If I speak up, maybe I'm speaking too much, or if I'm giving feedback, that's an issue as well. You can't hold people accountable. Everything, you're on edge. So imagine you
You're
are
on
in the
edge.
workplace for 8 hours plus in a day, 5 days a week, or how many, days you go in. That's where you spend most of your time. So imagine being on edge for all that period of time, week after week after week after week. It's
And
exhausting.
some people, we take this job because we need a job. We need
Absolutely.
pension. Now, people of my age, we're looking at pension. We're looking at, okay, I'm going to take this job. I
Hmm.
have, say, it's 5, 7 years before I can retire. I'm going to build my pension. You
Hmm.
walk in with a set goal in mind. When I was young, it's like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 years in this position and then I'm going to start looking to see where I can grow. Let me learn this job first. And then so you have goals, you have families to feed, everything is going up. Nobody wants to stay stagnant making a little bit of money.
Okay.
So we all in it together. If we can find a way to allow the workplace to be what it is supposed to be, I think we would solve half of the health problems that we have in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you think about it, it's a team. No one's an isolated person on any job, right? Every person has a role to play. And so if you find someone, it's almost like a link. If you find one piece of the link or two pieces of the link not doing too well because they are suffering from workplace trauma, what happens to
Mm-hmm.
productivity? What happens to your productivity? Because what winds up happening is that there may be some people that might be out sick, that might not show up to work, or they may be in spaces where they're like freezing up, you know, looking at a screen, but no work is happening because guess what? The mind has been taken over with all that fear and anxiety. Their body is reacting a certain way. And so how they would normally perform is not necessarily going to be to the highest, level of what they can do.
No,
Right. And so when
no,
somebody who's impacted that way and you still got your KPIs that are needed and, all these outcomes that are needed, it impacts the team. And the one
it
who's the
impacts the
acting,
team.
right, is the one that actually has to have some level of accountability to what are you doing to cause this? But it doesn't always happen.
It doesn't always have, although I think the last few years with Joy Floyd's situation, um, with COVID happening, I think the last few years, different organization has taken into consideration um, to have these trainings available for people to kind of come and vent. They call it diversity outreach, and everybody was doing something on diversity. Did you think that helped, or do you think it's for the bottom line?
So I'm gonna be honest. I graduated my master's in 2012, that first position that I told you about. They well in advance before 2020. Okay, so we're talking about like 8 years prior to 2020. These things kind of sort of existed in certain places. I worked in New York City. New York City can be, well advanced in certain things, and being able to kind of hold safe spaces to kind of have certain conversations, affinity groups, right? Speaking about diversity and all those sorts of things and how we can support each other. Those things existed.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest thing about DEI is great. I think that everything has good intentions, but the people who are being put in the place to do certain things, it should not be a checklist. It should be coming from a place of being genuine.
Genuine, this is where we're going, this is the culture. It needs to become a culture.
We talk about it needing to be a culture, and I feel like sometimes we have, and I'm not downing DEI. I think it's a very important topic. I mean, I
Mhm.
sit in meetings, be a part of, certain groups. I loved it, right? And then you start recognizing that certain people who are championing it are not about that life for real, if I'm gonna be honest. Right? So it's good. It's good. I'm going to talk about what we offer. I'm going to stand up and do a presentation. And when you're in a one-on-one situation, that first job, that director was a part of one of those groups. Okay. And
Yes. Yeah.
so if you want to talk about encouraging me to apply for positions and how, certain places and languages and what they do the role, right? But when you're on a one-on-one
Yeah.
level, it's like, I didn't expect that, not from you. you know? So it's important. I think that there are policies, there are a lot of different things that are happening within organizations in place. However, how people are actually carrying it out in a genuine way is really what matters. Is really what matters because you can have a,
Yeah.
oh, you told me to check in with people and smile for psychological safety. Check. I walked in this morning. I said hello, right? Check. Okay, I turned back around. I checked in to see how their day was going, or doing certain things. You're given certain examples of what to do so that you can provide a psychological safety environment in the workplace to reduce the levels of trauma, to increase positive interactions and engagements. And people are not always that genuine.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny you said that. Let me check Facebook to see if there's something going on. Marie Vernon said diversity and inclusion. Yes, that's what the programs are named,
Hmm.
that they're trying to put out here to help us.
Yeah.
Um, somebody the other day, I said, "Good morning, how are you today?" Um, he says, "Not good." And then I realized nobody expect to hear not good from somebody. How are you today? It's always, I'm good, I'm fine, good, how are you? We just program to give you the quick, I see you goodbye, or I'm just acknowledging you goodbye.
May I say,
Ann
even
Bowers, go
like
ahead.
even as you're talking about that simple hello, good morning, how you doing? A lot of times, and this is just overall,
Mm-hmm.
when a person comes in and it's become routine, as you're speaking, you're walking away, right? You didn't stop to actually say, "Hey, good morning, how are you doing?" Like you intended to really know how
Uh-huh.
you're doing. So the fact that that person even shared, "Oh, not so great," it shows that there's a level of trust and comfortability that they can actually share. "I'm not doing so good today." Because otherwise, you probably would have got, "I'm okay," and then kept it moving or nothing at all. And then
Right. And
went
it
silent.
stopped me on my track because I really didn't expect it.
Yeah,
So I turned around and I pulled up a chair. I said, "So what's the problem? What's bothering you?" We had a whole conversation.
yeah,
I ended up telling her, your days off, your vacation days are for days like this. And I realized she's trying to get away from home, so she comes to work.
right, right.
I'm
Listen,
trying to get away from home. I cannot even take a day to, like, a mental day. And I come to the stress level area to keep piling up on it. I said, "Girl, just whenever you feel like going to take a walk, just take the walk, go to the bathroom. As far as I'm concerned, you're off today because you're not here. Take the time that you need."
right.
And then I said, maybe we do lunch after my meeting, which was a great idea.
Hmm.
We did lunch. Um, it was amazing to me how a simple good morning, how you today turns into a whole coaching session.
Yes,
Not to say
that part.
session.
No, it's exactly that part, right? Because you stopped, you
Yes,
took the time to check in, see how they were doing. And based on what they shared, you actually inquired on, what their self-care was like. Listen, when you are
yes.
overwhelmed, you are burnt out, it's not a good place to be in. And a lot of people just don't really have a self-care regime. So if she was escaping home because of that and decided to come and dive deep into work as a distraction, it didn't necessarily help the relaxation, if anything, that was needed.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's look on Facebook to see microaggression makes employee work super hard. The workplace can be like a swimming in shock infested waters. That's true.
Yes.
That's true. Um, Josephus Daffis, hello, Josephus, welcome. Hello, all. Training will not change people's hearts and character. We need to be professional to get the work done. What
Hmm.
do you feel about that?
Sometimes the workplace is where it becomes a melting pot, if we're going to be
Yeah,
honest. Okay.
yeah.
Um, And I'm happy for the opportunities where I can enlighten my fellow colleague on my experiences because
Mhm.
when we hear people say, I'm not racist or I have a black friend, um, when we hear people talk about those experiences or say that, oh, I'm colorblind, right? Going off on another topic again. However, without people being in the workplace and these conversations happening, it's not happening at their dinner table. The United States already has its history, it has its systems, and a lot of times cultural humility is something that is not happening unless you are able to cross paths with someone else and hear their story and hear what they go through. You don't really know what the rest of the world looks like except for yours. So I'm happy for the trainings. I'm happy for those circles and opportunities to have like those conversations. And yes, they can leave at that moment and go home and not have to worry about what we experience as Black people in the United States of America, right? However, being in those spaces gives them that opportunity to somewhat get an understanding or at least a peek of you. Now, yes, we do need to be professional and we're also human, right? So sometimes it's like finding that right balance, go in and do your work. Yes, that's fine. You can go in and do your work, but what happens while you're doing your work is where all of this conversation is coming from. It's not that people are not
Yeah.
going into work to be professional, but when you are in a meeting and they say, oh, you're not speaking up enough, and all of a sudden that goes on your review because you're not participatory, or it has nothing to do with your outputs. It has something to do with, oh, you're not building relationship amongst your people, your team, right? And here you are saying, I'm coming to work, I'm being professional. I was told to do X, Y, and Z, this task, right? And I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, right? But we're not computers. We're human. We have feelings. When we interact with each other, how we communicate with one another matters. You might say something a
Yes.
certain way and it comes across disrespectful, and all of a sudden you don't understand why the person no longer wants to speak with you. Or why it is that when you're supposed to be working as a team, it's a problem. I'm not getting the emails I'm supposed to be getting. I'm not getting the information I'm supposed to be getting. Why? Because you haven't built the relationship or the trust that you need in order to make things happen. So yes, you
To
can
make
talk,
things happen.
but be professional. If you're an entrepreneur and you're working for yourself by yourself, you may not necessarily
That
need
will work.
interactions, but when you are in a place where you're working with other people all the time, there's a balance of a lot of things that's needed. Even emotional intelligence. We haven't spoken about that, but it's important to have emotional intelligence. You can't come into a meeting, and just start talking to people. You need to check in, right? So
Yes.
all of those
See
things,
what's going on
check in with the
around you.
people,
Yes.
you know.
Mhm.
So
My first meeting, I remember I walked in an organization and they had the management meeting. All the white people on one side. I'm like, oh, even on that level, we don't mingle. Um, the colored people on the other side. And I brought it to my boss's attention. She said, you know what? I never thought of it that way. So the following day, the next time we had a meeting, he made everybody squish and move around and talk to
yep,
each other. Um, and then if you're not looking, it goes right back to the groups, to the different
those
groups.
quit.
So it needs to
Yeah.
be,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Venna on Facebook says, do you think company surveys can measure employees' job motivation?
Well, sometimes, sometimes, I when we as we're talking about surveys, I'm also going to talk about what a 360 performance review would be, right? Number one, it has to be anonymous, right? Because if you feel like you are sharing something that someone else is going to know that you said, there may be fear of retaliation, right? And so when it comes to these surveys, It might be able to measure. The question is, who is going to enforce change? I am so tired of filling out these forms for you to understand how I feel, what I experience, because the next question is, well, what are you going to do with the responses? Right? So yes, that's one part of it, but then who is actually going to do the accountability part and start shifting things, right? So that's the answer to that. But I also want to add in talking about 360 performance reviews, right? Because then not only are the employees, the workers, whoever's being supervised getting a performance review, but also the person in leadership, right? And it also goes back to now the accountability part. Who's going to be making these changes? Who's going to hold who accountable? How are we going to do this?
That is
Without
a good
accountability, there's no change.
Last few weeks, I think I had they sent a whole, it's like they contracted a company to come to research and feel what the employees are thinking and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did so good, we gave them all this information. And and then you don't hear anything. It's been 2 months, 6 months went by. We had an all-employee meeting. They asked about what is the outcome? What should we expect? Oh, we're still working on something. 1 year they did that. I think they give everybody in my section a raise because we were below in the area.
Mm-hmm.
We complain about why is everybody making so much more money than we are? So so if you stay on them, if you're not afraid, we have to have the courage
Yes.
to speak up. We have to have, and the more people speak up, the more impact
Yes.
we can
I
have.
believe in that.
Yeah.
I believe in that.
To do it and stay on them, they cannot do, they have to do something. They
Absolutely.
have to do something.
It's important to have courageous conversations, and there is power in numbers. We know
There
that.
is power in numbers.
Yes. I remember being someone who spoke up in meetings because I thought, things mattered. And when you're the only one speaking about things, you become a
It's
target.
lonely.
It's
You
lonely and you
become
become a target.
I'm telling you, you are the troublemaker. Here she
Exactly.
goes. Here she goes.
Don't dare hold
Um,
somebody accountable.
if you have to be strong and be willing to stand alone. Ketli, welcome, Ketli. It's nice to have you. You are discussing a great topic. I agree. It's a big thing. It could be Nava using Ketli's account. Um, Josephis Daffis, I agree with you, Coach Dophilas. Yes, racism is well and alive at work. By being professional, I mean to be ready to get your job done. Come on time, leave your personal program at home, problems probably at home. Here you have it.
Yeah. Those are great work etiquette for sure.
Yes, yes. What resources are available to Black women dealing with workplace trauma?
Well, what resources are available? First of all, we want to be able to tap into what is work providing in terms of benefits and take advantage of it. So what I mean by that is you talked about taking a
I'm
mental
going to share my screen so I can start adding stuff to this
health. Okay,
presentation.
perfect. Perfect.
Okay. So you saying final tip, use,
Use the
what are
company
we using?
resources. You want to be able to use your sick time, use your vacation time. Work has FMLA, right? The Family Medical Leave Act,
Yes.
right? So
Um,
That's a resource that needs to be used as well. Understanding how that can be used is important. But if you find yourself being extremely overwhelmed and you're in a space where, things are way too much for you, that's gonna cause some medical stuff, right? And you're constantly having to go to the doctors. This is at a point where people are, you know, um, gravely affected. You want to be able to take your
Mhm.
FMLA. Don't just
I'm dealing with something like this as we speak, that somebody didn't take advantage of these services and they needed them.
Mhm.
And it's terrible. It's horrible.
Yep. So when you have those benefits at work, take advantage of them. They're for you to use. Don't just work yourself so hard to the point where, it can be detrimental. So in
Yeah.
addition to that, there's EAP,
EAP is a great program. This is
right?
still a concept.
Employee assistance program. I
Mhm.
believe that you can be offered at least like 4 sessions for free. So whether it's internal issues or work-related issues, you want to be able to take advantage of that. Just
And they
like
have so many services. They have law, they have therapy, they have um, wheel riding and all
Mhm.
kinds of stuff. And they extend it to your family as well, even if they're not covered sometimes.
Right, right. So as you're writing down the tips, put vacation and sick time, personal leave, take those. No, some people
Favorite.
aren't taking vacation. Their vacation adds up, they're overwhelmed, they're
Cash it out.
overworked. Right. And burnt out and not taking the time. Take your vacation. Step away from the office, step away from your desk, um, step away from the work and take time to regroup. Um, I like that. Yes. Step away. Step away from
Awesome.
your desk. Take your lunch.
Take your lunch.
Take your lunch. That's
Let's
very important.
It is extremely important. It's a bad habit because you're so busy, you're trying to get things done. You bring
Mhm.
your food, you eat at your desk.
Yep.
It's like, come on, when you actually get up and take a walk,
Hmm.
you feel different when you come back from lunch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even if you're not gonna go get food, at least step away for the time frame so that you can kind of revitalize yourself. Um,
Yes.
being able to clock out on time. I know that, different professions can be a struggle at times, but it's important to, when work is done, let work be done and not bring it home or to the next place that you're going. Take a break from that.
Yes.
Um, some of us are
Especially now, a lot of
people.
people are working from home.
Yes, that too, right? So being able to kind of have that separation is very important. If you are working from home, have a designated area where it's specifically for work and not mixing with where you're cooking and where you're sleeping and those sorts of things as well. You want to be able to differentiate that. Um, that also includes work emails, phone calls, right? If you get off at 5, everything is off at 5 o'clock.
And Ann Bowers says, disconnect from work when you are at home. That's
Yes,
important. Turn
absolutely.
off that phone and put it away.
Absolutely. Because what winds up happening is that it then, follows through with work and your family life relationships and stuff. And, it gets in the way. So you want to be able to do that. As we're talking about workplace trauma, in addition, we want to be able to create a support system outside of work. Sometimes we might have these group of people that we could talk to at work, but be mindful, you also need a group of people outside of work that you can consider your support system.
Yes.
Implement daily
Um,
routines for self-care. I mean, I have a lot of tips. Let me do. Implement daily
implement.
like routines for self-care. Like when you first walk into an office, get settled. Get settled. Some people they like to, listen to some music, drink their coffee, have a self-care routine
Yes.
for yourself and be able to implement what your boundaries are. You might be in a leadership position. The moment they see you come in, you didn't even put your purse down yet, and they want to run and come and talk to you. Give me 5 minutes.
Boundary.
Give me 10 minutes. and I'll get back,
Yes.
right?
Take 5.
Take 5.
Awesome.
Take
These
5.
are some great tips. Let me see. Did I have all my questions taken care of? Engaging the audience. How can Black women empower themselves and each other to overcome workplace trauma? That's such an important question.
Mhm. I think all of what I mentioned before are ways that empowerment can happen, right? Using the resources that you
Yes.
actually have. In addition to we're gonna keep talking about resources because this is what it's at. In addition to that, we also have documentation. If you
Mm-hmm.
didn't write it down, it didn't happen. And so it's important for you to document the experiences that you're having, the date, the time, who you were speaking to, what was the
Mm-hmm.
situation, how did it make you feel, what was the exact words that were utilized, right? Because if you don't have a paper trail of what it is that you've been experiencing, when it's actually time to step it up, file complaints and do those sorts of things, you won't really
Mm-hmm.
have anything to base it on. You're gonna speak from an emotional place, and documentation helps you to kind of keep things very clear and concise.
Yeah. Yeah. What a topic. What a subject. We can go on and on and on here.
And we can.
Um,
Mhm.
let's talk about what you have coming up for the public. I don't know. Can you guys see the screen? You can. Yes, you've been seeing it. So Ms. Davilas, let us know what it is that you do, why you call yourself the qualified coach to talk about this.
Awesome. Thank you for giving me the space and opportunity. So, um, outside of my own experiences, I decided to become a certified facilitator. And part of that facilitation is around something called Unbreak My Soul. And this is something that is created by Dr. Carrie Azid. You can find her on LinkedIn, always having those conversations. Um, and so by being a certified facilitator for Unbreak My Soul, I've been able to hold something called Safe Spaces. I hold it bi-weekly Thursdays from like 7 to 9 for groups, and it's completely anonymous. I encourage any Black woman professional who is experiencing workplace trauma, and I want to say within a 6-month period, or even if it's something that you have experienced, it allows you an opportunity to exhale, right? A lot of us don't have that space where we can talk to someone about what we've experienced or what impact it's had in our lives. And creating those safe spaces allows for, a group of women to be able to share it. That way, first of all, you're not alone, and the resources also get shared and circulated as well. I also want to kind of share this. I know that you have the safe space link right there provided.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have, like, if anyone has any questions or wanting like a safe space or a vulnerability workshop, that's what we call it. I also want to present like this book right here. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try. So that's not gonna work. Um,
Did you send it to me?
I did send it to you. Just to verbalize it, this is a workbook where you can actually start your healing process. Okay. And the book is called Unbreak My Soul: How Black Women Can Begin to Heal from Workplace Trauma. It is by Dr. Carrie Yazid, and you can find it on Amazon. So what I love about this book is that it also has some pages where you can actually see what documentation needs to look like for yourself. It also has opportunities for reflections and affirmations and daily prompts and just how to work through the trauma that you've experienced at work. And so it's something that I highly recommend. And in addition to that, for anyone who may be in the state of New York, if you are looking for a therapist, I am a licensed clinical social worker. If this is something that you have experienced and you're wanting a space to kind of fully process what you've been through, I would say, you could definitely look me up on LinkedIn, or you can also look me up on Psychology Today.
Awesome. Let me see if I can share my screen and go back to that page where we can have information.
Okay.
Please, I was trying to go, but my computer's, I guess it's loaded with information. And what is the name of the book again? From
The name of the
Amazon?
book, yes, it's called Unbreak My Soul:
Okay,
How Black Women
hold on.
mhm,
Unbreak
Unbreak My Soul:
My
How
Soul.
Black Women Can Begin to Heal from Workplace Trauma. And it's by Dr. Carrie
Here,
Yazid.
Workplace.
I typed it into the chat for you too.
Awesome, thank you.
Um,
I have an all here next to woman from Workplace Trauma. And you said it's by Dr.
Carrie Yazid.
Can you spell that?
C-A-R-E-Y.
E-A-R-C-S.
No, C-A. Let's start over. Start over. Carrie,
C. Okay.
C-A-R-E-Y, and last name Yazid.
Y.
Y-Z,
Y-V as in
Y-A,
Victor.
no, Y,
Y-A.
yep, A as in apple, Z as in zebra, two E's, and a D.
Okay.
There we go.
Awesome. It will be cleaned up on the recorded version. This is live. Everything happens doing live. My phone, my computer freezes, all kinds of stuff. But we made it through.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
thank
you, Coach
you.
Dorvillas. I hope we can collaborate some more. I can't wait to get to one of your sessions in Jersey when you have your conferences. And I am so proud of the young people coming up into this space, young Haitian women. Those of you who joined us a little late, not at the beginning, at the top of the hour, I was emphasizing how important it is for us to network with each other. I connected with Coach Dorvillas at the Haitian Network, Haitian Women Network that was in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, right before COVID.
Right before.
And we had a little group and we all connected and we stayed in touch and we follow each other. I think it was a great investment. I encourage people to network with each other because we have so much talent in our community. Why not use it?
Yeah,
I thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank
having
you.
me.
I can't wait to see you. Everybody on Facebook, I love you guys. Thank you for your support, for your continued support. And we can do this again. If anybody else wants to continue with their personal experience, I'm happy to open it up and talk some more. Okay? I appreciate everybody. We will talk soon. Mr. Coach Davila, do you have something you want to add to close?
You know, Kambila, I just want everyone to know that, whatever you're experiencing, you're not alone. These resources are definitely something to take advantage of. The safe space sessions that I hold, they are virtual. And so it's a confidential space where these conversations can take place. A lot of times, people may not feel comfortable enough to share, right? Because you never know who's watching or who's listening. And so I just want to encourage, like, if at any point in time there is something that you're going through, know that you're not alone. you do have resources and, taking advantage of those things. So stay strong.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love you. I will see you
Yeah.
soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.